Just jumping right back in from that last video where I'm in the same shirt with the same title. But all I meant to say is that in my experience and I'm talking about being a one percenter in this video, what it might mean to be a one percenter is that how I understand 1% in my experience, and I've also referenced that some of who I am can fit into rare percentiles, but all I meant to say is that what I understand is that a good, and I'm being general just for the purpose of illustration with these numbers. They're not arbitrary or they're not authoritative. But I'm just saying a good 80 to 90% of the people that I encounter where I live, howsoever I approach them, agreeable, disagreeable, which some people can actually because of the way that this universe operates in a reciprocal fashion. I'm saying an inverse fashion. Some people can actually employ or lean into being disagreeable and actually get agreeable outcomes. So I'm not saying that's impossible, but all I meant to say is that whether I approach someone agreeable, disagreeable, or indifferent, I still get more or less the same flat contempt and inimical responses for about 80 to 90% of people. Then there's another like maybe 8-9% of people where we actually are there's a word for it. I'm not thinking of it shows you how long it's been since I was in it shows you my relationship background when I say that I can't think of that word for what it's called when you actually when you get along with someone and you work with someone and you click with someone. There's a word for that, but I would say there's 8 or 9% of somewhat rare times when I come across a person where we actually are like existing on a similar wavelength, and it can be felt. But yet, either one of us will corrupt that, or both of us will corrupt that, either by choice or just by the influence of all these other things that are set against us and that are sneering at us on a daily basis. But then through all that, I think that for me, my real blessings, my real consecrated experiences in reality of something meaningful have been as rare as what could be called 1%. And that's also while having some of the appearance, experience, and background of what could be as rare from my in contrast to most people's experience, generally speaking, could fit into being very rare, like 1%. And what I meant with that is that even in such a setting, it's not that it's in a long trip across the desert. It's not that often that I come across a watering hole, and the times that I do, I have come to appreciate that it might not have actually been intended for me. A lot of things happen in very sophisticated inverse fashion. So amidst all of this turmoil, deprivation, hurt, hell, doing the best that I can, and getting the stronger I come, the better I come, the more weird, whack, indifferent behavior I get. I think it might have been Robert Greene was saying that. Now I'm not putting myself up into the category of being being an outstanding, handsome person. But what he said is that sometimes people who are very attractive, they have some of the hardest experiences because of the level of jealousy that they can come about. Not necessarily handsome, but just people who are gifted. They can have some of the most painful experiences simply because you get weird stuff when you do something. Make a hit song. Make a beautiful song, like a really beautiful song, and actually upload it somewhere. You might get strange reactions. You might get some no doubt you'll get some good reactions, but you would get some things that are not, they don't make linear sense with what you think you're offering. And I think that's like a lot of the story of some of our great artists, is that our great artists live really painful lives, and it's only maybe a rare few that are celebrated in their own life. But a lot of people who have something to say or something to do that's beneficial and awesome, they get a lot of the opposite is what they get for that. And so I'm saying, like, in my way, the best that I've burned, I've I've wiped the backside of old people I've taken school age children to school, a bunch of 70 of them at the same time, safely. I've done different things in my community and for myself, like as a person, as you would think that you might at least get a handshake for that, but I more or less get spit in the face for most of it, and I'm not here to grab about that, but I want to say that within all that, there, I think with that much that's set against you, just mathematically, it would figure mathematically that within all that there would actually be something beneficial and enjoyable that would come as an aftermath and as a strange effect of how much has been against you. And even that very blessing might not, if it had its way, it would probably land in front of something of that other great majority of stuff that's against you. But yet you may still have one tenth of 1% of something cool to enjoy. And I think that it takes that much work getting past all that other stuff in good faith and in good cheer to come across your 1% of something that's good for you, that's something that is you, that's something that gets to be you, that's something that you get to do and be, and is actually consecrated, as actually experienced in reality in its fullness. And I would say whatever that 1% is, you probably didn't have that exactly in mind when you started out, and it itself may not have had itself in mind for you. But so that's what my understanding of being 1% is that would you go through that much hell to get something that wasn't even intended for you, but it actually is really good for you. It really is good. That's what I think. That's what I'm saying is 1% right there. And and then I guess I'll just briefly say one thing I'll probably do another piece on this, but like a lot of people have described like have spoken about like chosen one that become a theme, and I think that that YouTuber that I made in the first video of this dual series was New Breed Global Truth, and he cited himself as being one of the proponents that made that trending in like the last 5 years. And I did see a video with him about 5 years ago mentioning chosen ones, and I know that from being a YouTube connoisseur over a long period, I wasn't coming across that I had come across that much of what he's talking about long before that, like certain faith circles that I went to would reference the story of Joseph in the Bible. It's very reminiscent of what could be called a chosen one, and some of the dynamics and outcomes of that mode of existing. But in about that 5 years ago, that New Breed Global Truth, he was speaking about that, and I wasn't hearing other people speaking about that at that time. But it's no less become trending. And what I want to say that I think anyone has it in their capacity to be a chosen one. And all that would mean is simply someone would say like you're chosen because you choose yourself. And I think that well, in one sense that's true because we are one another and we are a part of the absolute. So from that sense, if we have been chosen by the absolute, it could be said that we have chosen ourselves because we are yet a function and a member of the absolute. But more so, I just want to say that maybe to the most equitable, big yet sincere way of describing what it could be to be chosen would be simply to claim your scope of choice and make choices that are strong for you. There's a as being choice in another form. I won't go into it here, but I referenced in another form that what I think if you've been moved by, a lot of us have seen the film Lord of the Rings and what the ring actually represented, and I think that my understanding is I put in another form is that ring what that ring amounts to in that film is choice, a person's choice. It took a Lord of Darkness, an all-seeing eye, legions of Earth and the netherworlds, different magical creatures within all this, different close friends, intimate friends, different renegades and people gifted with some people are really gifted to survive. So you had that figure of who's been given the gift of survival, and all of that set against this humble person being the main protagonist of that film, and seeking to either influence or confiscate his ability to choose his own to make his own choice. You know, these different forces in that film, like even the great one of darkness, or these different magical creatures, they yet there's a limitation to all of our choice. There's a potence to all of our choice, but our choice is also limited. So our choice is almost unbound, but yet it's also bound at the same time by itself, because whatever we do, whatever choice we make, there are reverberations that come with that. So that is the limiting of choice. We're free to choose anything, but we're yet bound by the reverberations of that choice. And in that film, all those other things, the Lord of Darkness, the undead armies, the legions of Earth, and the other realms, the magical beings, they had spent their choice to a certain degree, and therefore they are interested in this humble person who has not yet spent his choice. And that can be equated to all the different advertisements and different means of influence. The entire, as sophisticated as the World Wide Web is, and as much as is possible with a platform such as the World Wide Web, what it has amounted to is cultivating influence in order to confiscate the choice of the most humble people. You know, if you look at there's another video. I don't know where I picked this up. I did pick it up in another video, and I don't have that offhand. But they cited that. Oh no, I think it was RSD, the Real Social Dynamics. RSD Tyler, he pointed out that you have like different scales of business initiative, interest, and enterprise, and then like you would have like your like mom and pop. Then you have like different scales of business, all the way to the real titans. And I think that the greatest titans in terms of profit, they do at least two things. And one of them I'm not gonna name any of the behemoths in terms of like profit, but we all know certain ones that you can't go more than a skip and a jump around the entire nation, at least in the United States, if not the world, without seeing one of these. And one thing I want to point out is that at this point, a lot of them are like franchise, but in their real bigness in terms of profit, these bigger ones, they draw their profit from the little guys. So like they make their money off of people that are scraping together 50 cents to get something, $1 to get something, because they just need something right now for tonight to eat. So they're gonna get they're gonna look under the couch and get together enough to buy something to eat tonight. And that dynamic of squeezing the lowest people, that's where the real obscene wealth comes from. It's squeezing the lowest people. And so that and then what that amount within, what do they do once what do they really do to really get over when they're actually amounting obscene, because you might have an obscene capital at this point, but you don't have obscene wealth yet. I was talking to a man at a gas station describing the difference between wealth and land, or capital and land. And even yet, capital is corruptible and is arbitrary and can be it can be undermined or deleted very very quickly. Capital can be, but land is more settled. Land, as the man in the gas station said, land is eternal. So what happens is when a company gets of great scale, they recognize the detriment of their own inertia and their own liquid capital, and then it comes down to land. So I think that the biggest winners, they actually get rid of their own success in their own company, and then they work from the standpoint of hoarding land, and then letting other people operate the very enterprise that they created with the same name and likeness on their land, and then they tax their ass with rent, and so and then at this point they're now lords. Like, I think the word would be landlord, but if that's not a pretentious word right there, they're now lords of them, of what had been themselves, and that's how they're getting over. Yet again, but the great filtering is still happening, because the little people are being squeezed for what's in their couch, and then it's coming to the face and the front of people who are wanting to operate a business, and but they're still yet having to work for it, and they're doing so on top of the land. And then the people that own the land are almost making a pure profit at this point. But it had been done by squeezing the little guys for what's under their couch. And that's similar to in the film Lord of the Rings, where all these great big forces, they want the choice of the little guy, the honest guy, because that's actually more potent. This is the last thing with this video is that I do like we think we're getting something by doing good stuff and gaining experience and making this reality happen. But actually quite the opposite is the case, in that the more we give to this reality, the less we have to give it, and therefore the less valuable we are. So if you think about I would say that our modern paradigm, but maybe even reality itself, it skews towards favoring inexperience over experience, fundamentally. So if two people were to walk up to a store, right, like maybe someone that's like clearly an adolescent and juvenile, no more than 10 or 12 years old, and the person goes up to the cash register and says, and they're like, "Can I help you?" And they're like, "Bitch, fuck you." A little kid, that's gonna be nasty. That's gonna sound nasty, and that is nasty. But they're gonna look at that one way from a person of inexperience. And if I go to a grown man and I go up to the teller and I say that very same thing, I'll be lucky if I don't die in a chokehold by a bystander that I didn't know just got back from jujitsu practice and would like nothing else than to lean into a grown man that would deign to say something like that, having experience. So that's an example of how reality it skews and it favors inexperience. But another example of that is that I've been doing like obscene amounts of deliveries over my life, at different times, and then my most recent iteration of that has been like 1099 work. And I think on the app that I use, I'm up to at least 5,000 deliveries since 2002. So that's like, I'm just 22. So that's like, I'm coming up, it's been about 3 years. And even within that, I was actually doing I was subsidizing regular work with that. So I wasn't doing full deliveries at that point, but I still made it up to 5,000 deliveries. And they have like different ranking, like for metrics. And I more or less understand like what the ranking is favoring, but it really amounts to doing more volume of work and doing it efficiently is what. And there's still when you're 1099, you have a scope of choice, so it's ranking you as far as how you're choosing to engage with the platform. But when you do so by accepting more work and performing more work efficiently, you get a higher rank. So I have the higher levels of rank that are available on it, and I also have a track record of about no less than 5,000 deliveries. But there were a couple of times, I think like last summer, where I had done a delivery. So you can do like two different ways, where you either get paid strictly by commission, or you get a somewhat of like a flat wage while you're engaged, but you also but you also get the commissioning, but you're liable to get lower offers because you are accepting anything that comes in, and that's part of the agreement to have the rate. But all I meant to say is that I one time didn't deliver something. I didn't mark something as complete, and so I was faulted for that while doing so while having the pay as you go, the time feature, and I wasn't intending to abuse it like that, but that's how it actually happened. So for about the last maybe 3 or 4 months, I haven't had the ability to use the pay by the hourly feature, because I had made that mistake once. Within the greater context of 5,000, at least about 5,000 successful deliveries, there were bloopers within that, but the vast, overwhelming, comprising majority has been timely and completed as ordered. But but it's always saying like, do you have what friends and family do you have? What do you hey, we're having a new deal. Bring someone on over and you'll get this much. But they're actually always interested in inexperience. So if I were to actually recruit now, I have family members that it would be a cold day in hell before I ever recruited them for anything, and it'd be a somewhat not as cold but still yet a cold day in hell when they actually did something for work of their own initiative. But if that person were to decide by some miracle to join me on the platform, which they have the ability to because we use two different vehicles now, they would be ushered and welcomed and warm. And I would imagine if the some of the higher the higher ranking members of that of the platform I serve wouldn't take a flight halfway across the country or world just to shake his hand and then maybe even drop something while they do it and happen to bend over in front of him to pick it up while he's about to begin his very first ever delivery, and he'd have full access to the entire platform, not the least of which the ability to go by hour. While I live there like a dumbass having done 5,000 orders, and then he's now favored over me. So that's just an example of how actually a lot of reality does actually skew and favor inexperience over experience. Just as a just to go with the overall message of this video, that we do more and more and more and more and more, and we get we effectively get worse treatments and worse outcomes the better we bring and the more effort we bring and the more that we complete, if it's actually in the interest of another person or the initiative of another person. And seldom if ever do we have anything worthwhile that we get to taste and enjoy. And I would say whatsoever we do get to taste and enjoy, it came as a byproduct of either stepping up with initiative, but also bucking something so as to engage with our own strong suit and initiative in a way that upsets or confounds the greater trends and algorithms that are set against us, not the least of which human behavior. To where you had done something spontaneous, eccentric, meaning engaging with natural and spontaneous advantages of terrain and circumstance, and then you had so you did it of your own initiative, eccentric, and you some anything that's worthwhile that comes to you, you either use initiative and you did something that wasn't expected of you, and that's how you that's how you lucked up and fucked around and landed on something that was never intended for you yet is good for you. Is my understanding of what it means to be 1%. So all I meant to say is I'm willing to work for my 1%, and I hope you're willing to work for your 1%, and then we can actually experience something, and then we can maybe think of what it has taken and what it is to experience 1%. So I hope this can be of value to someone, and I offer this in sincerity and esteem.